Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel where we bring you the latest and most intense updates about Sheikh Hamdan and his family. If you are new here and haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe now and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss any important update. In my last video, now let's move on to your topic. Someone is finally facing a heavy cost for what they did to you. The city was quiet in the early hours of dawn, the kind of silence that feels like the world is holding its breath before another long day begins. Fazza stood by the wide glass window of his apartment, watching the pale light touch the buildings one by one. For years, mornings had carried a weight he could not explain, a heaviness that followed him even into his dreams. He had learned to live with it, to carry it like an invisible scar no one else could see. There was a time when he trusted easily, when laughter came without effort and hope felt like a natural part of breathing. Back then, his world was simpler, filled with honest promises and open hearts. He had believed that loyalty was unbreakable and that people meant what they said. That belief had cost him more than he ever imagined. It happened slowly at first, almost unnoticed, like a crack forming in glass. Words began to feel different. Smiles stopped reaching the eyes. Small doubts turned into long nights of silence and unanswered questions. Fazza felt something slipping away from him, yet he kept telling himself it was nothing, that love and friendship were strong enough to survive a little misunderstanding. He wanted to believe that the people closest to him would never choose selfishness over truth. But the truth arrived one day without mercy. A betrayal he never expected shattered the balance of his life. Someone he trusted deeply used his kindness as a weapon, twisting his intentions and spreading shadows where there was once light. Rumors followed him like a storm, damaging his reputation, shaking his confidence, and isolating him from people who once stood beside him. He tried to defend himself, but the louder lies always seemed to overpower his quiet honesty. The nights became longer. Sleep escaped him. His heart carried questions that had no answers, and his mind replayed every memory, searching for the moment everything went wrong. He blamed himself for being too kind, too open, too willing to see the good in everyone. Pain slowly reshaped him, making him quieter, more guarded, more distant. People began to say he had changed, but no one asked why. Still, Fazza never allowed bitterness to fully claim his soul. Even in silence, he chose dignity over revenge. He walked away from arguments that could have turned ugly. He kept his integrity when it would have been easier to fight back with the same cruelty he had received. Deep inside, he believed that time had a way of revealing the truth, even when justice seemed delayed. Life continued, carrying him forward whether he was ready or not. He focused on his work, on rebuilding himself piece by piece. He learned to enjoy his own company, to find peace in late-night drives, quiet books, and long walks under open skies. Slowly, confidence returned, not the loud kind that demands attention, but the calm strength that comes from survival. He began to understand that growth often comes from the darkest chapters. Then one evening, without warning, a message arrived. It was short and unexpected, carrying news that made his heart pause. The person who had once damaged his life was now facing serious consequences for their actions. Lies had unraveled. Hidden truths had surfaced. The same people who once believed the false stories had finally seen the reality. Accountability had arrived, slow but steady, like a tide that cannot be stopped. Fazza read the message again, unsure of how to feel. There was no excitement, no desire to celebrate. Instead, a strange calm settled over him. It felt like a long-held breath finally being released. The weight he had carried silently for years began to loosen its grip on his chest. Memories returned, but this time they did not hurt the same way. He remembered the sleepless nights, the quiet tears, the loneliness that shaped him into the man he had become. He realized that none of it had been wasted. Every painful lesson had built resilience within him, teaching him patience, wisdom, and emotional strength. He stepped outside onto the balcony, letting the cool air touch his face. The city lights shimmered below like distant stars. Somewhere in the noise and movement of life, justice had found its way, not through anger or force, but through truth and time. Fazza understood that he did not need to witness anyone's downfall to feel validated. Knowing that truth had finally spoken was enough. A gentle smile touched his lips, not because someone else was suffering, but because he was free. Free from the burden of unanswered questions, free from the silent doubt that, leaning into her laughter, memorizing the way her eyes softened when she spoke about simple things. It felt natural, effortless, like two souls recognizing familiarity without understanding why. Days became conversations. Conversations became comfort. Comfort became something dangerous hope. I told myself it was innocent, that admiration is allowed, that connection doesn't always mean intention. But the heart has its own language, and mine was learning her name in every heartbeat. I imagined her presence in quiet moments. I wondered how her silence sounded. I caught myself smiling at nothing and realizing it was her memory passing through me. She never spoke of anyone else. Not once. No ring. No stories of a husband. No shadow of another life crossing her words. If anything, she spoke like someone who understood loneliness, who carried a quiet ache beneath her calm strength. It made me feel closer to her. It made me want to protect that softness. And slowly, without permission, I fell. Not recklessly, not dramatically, gently. The kind of falling that feels like trust, the kind that doesn't realize the ground is disappearing until it's too late. I began to care about her happiness more than my own peace. I began to measure time by moments I might see her again. I began to imagine futures my heart had no right to imagine. Then the truth arrived without mercy. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a warning. It was a careless sentence spoken by someone else, dropped into the air like a blade wrapped in silk. She's married. The words echoed louder than reality. Married. A simple word with the power to collapse entire inner worlds. I remember the exact second my breath changed, the way my chest tightened, the way the room suddenly felt unfamiliar, like I had stepped into a life that wasn't mine. My mind rejected it at first. Denial fought for hope. Maybe they were mistaken. Maybe it was old news. Maybe there was an explanation that would soften the impact. But there wasn't. She was married. 1,000 memories rearranged themselves instantly, changing meaning, changing color, changing weight. Every smile now carried guilt. Every moment now carried boundaries I had unknowingly crossed. Every emotion suddenly felt misplaced, uninvited, forbidden. I didn't feel anger toward her. I felt disappointment in destiny. I felt betrayed by silence. I felt foolish for letting my heart build a home on land that was never mine. When I finally faced her, I didn't accuse. I didn't demand. I didn't raise my voice. I only asked quietly, "Is it true?" Her eyes answered before her lips did. There was sadness there. There was apology. There was something unfinished that neither of us could repair. She told me she never meant for it to happen, that loneliness can blur lines, that sometimes a heart seeks understanding even when it belongs somewhere else. She said she valued our connection but had never intended harm. Intentions don't erase consequences. I realized in that moment that love is not only about what you feel, it's about what you protect. And what I needed to protect now was dignity, hers, mine, and the invisible boundaries life had revealed too late. Walking away from someone you care about without blaming them is a different kind of pain. It's quiet, heavy, lonely. There's no villain to hate, no closure to hold. Just acceptance, slowly learning how to breathe. Surrounded by advisors, security, and ceremony, he had never felt more alone. Applause sounded hollow, smiles felt forced, and every success tasted strangely empty. Power gave him everything except the one thing his heart quietly desired. One evening, he stood alone on his palace balcony watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. His phone rested in his hand, her name glowing on the screen, unsent messages stacking in his drafts. He wanted to tell her he missed her, that some nights felt unbearable, that duty did not erase love, but he erased every word, knowing that reopening wounds would only deepen the pain. Meanwhile, Lena walked along the shoreline where waves whispered secrets into the sand. She remembered his words, his honesty, and the way his eyes carried both strength and sorrow. Love had not failed them. Timing and destiny had. A sudden message broke the quiet of her phone. "Lena, I hope you are well." Her heart skipped. It was him. She stared at the screen for several seconds before replying. I'm okay. I hope you are too. The conversation lingered cautiously, like two souls standing on opposite sides of a fragile bridge. Simple words carried heavy meaning. Neither dared to step too close, yet neither wanted to step away. Finally, his message appeared. Some things never leave the heart. Tears blurred her vision as she typed back. Some things teach the heart how to survive. Silence returned once again, but this time it carried understanding rather than pain. Both of them realized that love does not always end in togetherness. Sometimes it transforms into quiet respect, silent prayers, and distant care. Their bond had shifted from possession to remembrance, from longing to acceptance. Yet somewhere deep inside, both hearts wondered the same question: if destiny ever softened its grip, would love find its way back home? Months rolled forward quietly, changing the rhythm of both their lives without healing the quiet ache inside their hearts. Lena learned how to smile again in public, how to focus on her work, how to walk past memories without stopping, yet some nights still carried his name like a whisper in the dark. Healing was not forgetting, it was learning how to breathe around the absence. Hamdan's world grew louder and heavier. His responsibilities expanded, his public presence increased, and expectations tightened like invisible chains around every decision. Meetings stretched late into the night, ceremonies filled his calendar, and every appearance demanded perfection. Behind polished smiles and confident speeches lived a man who often stared into silence, wondering what life might have felt like if destiny had been kinder. Fate, however, enjoys quiet surprises. One evening, a charity gala brought leaders, artists, and humanitarians together beneath glowing chandeliers. Lena attended as part of her organization, unaware that the guest of honor would be Hamdan himself. When their eyes met across the crowded hall, time seemed to pause. The noise faded, conversations blurred, and memory rushed forward like a sudden tide. Neither expected this moment. Neither felt ready. Yet destiny placed them face to face once again. Hamdan approached slowly, his expression controlled, but his eyes revealing emotion he could not hide. Lena felt her heart tighten, but she held her composure, reminding herself of the strength she had built. "It's been a long time," he said gently. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady. "It has." They exchanged polite words, careful smiles, and respectful distance, yet the space between them carried everything they never said. The familiarity felt comforting and dangerous at the same time. Later, doors opened slowly. Royal path glowed. Steps echoed eternity. Fazza breathed deeply, heart steady strong, eyes calm, focused, spirit peaceful, glowing. Memories flashed gently, childhood dreams awakened. Promises whispered inward, honor guided choices. Strength carried humility, grace shaped presence, love anchored destiny. Audience watched reverently. Silence felt sacred. Energy vibrated softly. Air shimmered golden. Light kissed crowns. Camera flashes sparkled. Moments became legends. Stories wrote themselves. Fate smiled knowingly. Hands folded prayerfully. Eyes closed briefly. Soul thanked heavens. Courage flowed inward. Peace wrapped heart. Confidence rose gracefully. Smile warmed atmosphere. Warmth spread outward. Hope ignited everywhere. Love answered silently. Steps moved forward. Future opened brightly. Dreams aligned perfectly. Faith strengthened spirit. Purpose guided motion. Crowds leaned closer. Breaths synchronized softly. Time slowed gently. World faded briefly. Only love remained. Only destiny remained. Only light remained. Only peace remained. Only truth remained. Music softened air. Hearts matched rhythm. Energy pulsed unity. Eyes shimmered wonder. Smiles mirrored joy. Tears reflected gratitude. Souls embraced destiny. Moment felt eternal. Memory etched forever. Story breathed softly. History bowed respectfully. Legends awakened again. Royal chapter opened. Golden ink flowing. Pages turned silently. Readers unseen waiting. World listening closely. Whispers crossed borders. Screens lit globally. Voices shared amazement. Hearts united worldwide. Cultures blended harmoniously. Love spoke languages. Hope crossed oceans. Dreams traveled skies. Faith strengthened humanity. Kindness echoed globally. Unity felt stronger. Peace felt nearer. Light felt warmer. Future felt brighter. Fazza walked forward. Path glowing destiny. Courage shining gently. Smile steady calm. Eyes reflecting gratitude. Hands steady poised. Spirit calm grounded. Soul peaceful, luminous. Steps confident, graceful. Presence commanding humility. Royal yet human. Strong yet gentle. Power wrapped kindness. Honor wrapped patience. Wisdom guided actions. Love anchored purpose. Crowds whispered prayers. Children dreamed kings. Young hearts inspired. Old hearts comforted. Nations watched reverently. History smiled softly. Time recorded moment. Stars blinked approval. Moon guarded blessings. Sky showered peace.